Hello and welcome to the Happy PharmD podcast. I'm Dr. Alex Barker, founder and CEO at the Happy PharmD, where we help pharmacists get jobs that they love. In today's session, I'm joined by the lovely Janan Sarwar, who is the founder of Global Bookshelves and one of our career coaches. I've gotten to know Janan now for over 3 years, I believe. And it's so cool to see your transformation because in this episode, you're going to learn how just really one really simple change has led to new jobs, new opportunities, a couple of new businesses, and even a surprise amazing thing that Janan shares at the end. So, in with all of that, let's jump into the interview. How are you today, Janan?
I'm doing very well. Happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here. It's been a wild journey.
Definitely. So much has changed. I feel like every year I have new goals and new accomplishments, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Do you remember our first phone call?
Absolutely. It was actually because I was working in a job. I was working at the American Pharmacists Association in a publishing job. I was the senior director, and it was during the pandemic time, and I actually was applying to be a client for the Happy PharmD. And I talked to Eric, one of the sales associates. He was new at the time, and then he basically told me about what it would be to be a client. At the same time, I saw Jackie had posted that you all were looking for coaches. So I applied for both things. And that's actually how and why we met.
Yeah, you can imagine my confusion.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think it slipped through the cracks that in my because I remember speaking with you and not realizing you had also asked to be a client.
Yes.
And so you can imagine my confusion where I was like, wow, okay, you've got a really interesting career. You have the aptitude and the skills to be a coach. But you also want to be a client, which I think speaks to most of our coaches, I would say. Like everyone on the team is coachable, um, or wants to have a coach. I have a coach, and I think the idea of constant improvement is usually baked into the people who join. So fast forward, what, 3 years almost, maybe something
Yeah.
like that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um, and now you have your own company. You're a career coach with us. You've helped quite a few people transition into different jobs. Um, how did that happen?
Well, you were a huge part of that journey. In fact, it was that initial conversation where I kind of was doubting my career. I thought that I had taken a leap. I'm a pharmacist, very non-traditional pharmacist, right? That was working in publishing. And I was talking to you and I was talking about how, I loved what I did and I loved helping publish books, but I had no idea what other pharmacy career I could ever have because
Mm,
I thought I had pigeonholed myself in this career, didn't have an active license in the state I was living in at the time. I mean, just so many things I thought was working against me. And you happened to see the books behind me that were on my shelves. It's not showing right now, but and you were like, "Let me get this straight. You published all those books? Like what are all those books? Are those, things?" And I explained that, yeah, I mean, that's not a big deal. I think at that time it was like 40 books that I'd helped publish at APHA, and you helped me see that that was an asset. Like that not many people have done that. And I never saw that as something good about my past career. I thought it was something that was limiting me. And just
mhm,
being able to change my mindset to say, you know what, this is actually really cool, and I have a superpower, if you will, that I could talk about and leverage and use in a different way. So it
yeah.
wasn't overnight that I decided to create my own company, or now I have a couple of different ventures that I'm leading. It all came in time, but really rethinking where I started was the beginning.
Mm. Yeah, I remember at the time, you know, the problem you were experiencing is not uncommon. I think we all at times can be really hard on ourselves because we're all high achievers, right? As
Right.
pharmacists. And so we tend to think that what we've done isn't that big of a deal. Anyone can do what I do kind of
Yeah.
mentality. Um, what do you think contributed to that kind of mindset of like I'm so narrow that this isn't valuable?
Well, I think you think that, okay, in order to get another job, because that was the concern at the time. If I were
Mm,
to get another job, what do I need to do? What do I need to be? And all the cards seemed stacked against me. I didn't have a residency. I wasn't licensed. Like all the things that I was not, and none of that fit with the things that I was. So I didn't see in a normal traditional idea of when you're applying to a
mm.
place, I felt like I didn't have the things. I didn't have the requirements or the CV. And that was really where where things came from. That just seeing that I didn't feel good enough based on what I thought people needed to see on my applications.
So you changed your mindset, which sounds like it's an easy thing to say, but it's a totally harder thing to do, right? Because
Right.
that's ingrained. It's influencing behavior in subtle and not so subtle ways. And to go from, okay, I'm not gonna think this way anymore about my past to go to full-fledged, I'm gonna start my own business, that's a huge leap. The easy thing would be go find another, publishing job, right? Or help other people in publishing endeavors, businesses, academia. There's all sorts of opportunities out there. What led you to say, okay, I'm going to start up my own publishing company?
Great question. So it was actually quite slow. So if I really, slow down everything, our initial conversation that helped me start seeing the value in myself and the power that I could bring to different spaces came to light when I became a coach with the Happy PharmD. Even though I was not a client, it was almost becoming a coach and helping others through the curriculum that you helped develop or you developed. I was able to reflect on my own strengths, and my first transition, rather than doing anything in publishing, actually was medical writing, which was a career that I never had. So it really spoke to the fact of what the Happy PharmD does, which is help people transition into careers maybe that they have had zero formal experience in. And I didn't even have really that much informal experience, but I was able to speak through the transferable skills that I had and the passions that I had to land a position. So I took that job and I worked in that job for a little less than a year. And
Mm,
during that time, my real reason and need to transition was just to get more time. Because at the time I first started with this whole journey, I was working so many hours. I mentioned I was a senior director. I had staff reporting to me. And much to my parents and a lot of friends' dismay, they were really confused that I went from having a senior level position to my
sure.
title at a job. The job that I took was a grant writer. And that was a huge leap to do as well, even though financially it was perfect for me because I felt like, wow, I can still do something and contribute to pharmacy world without having to go back and get my license or work in a place or a setting that I wasn't comfortable with, like a community pharmacy or something like that. And as I was making that transition, I actually hired different coaches. I had a business coach to help me because I knew I wanted to do something, but I wasn't exactly sure what. I took classes related to children's books and publishing because my children really influenced what I wanted to do. And so the transition was much slower, but everything has contributed to helping me make the decisions I've made, and I've made really wise and sound decisions, I think, so far.
That's good. That's good to be confident.
Yeah.
I hear that some people want to just go to the next thing and have it be idealistic, but sometimes there's these transition jobs that we have to take in order
Yeah.
to learn the skills or whatever, and it sounds like that's what this grant writing job was. It was transition for the next thing,
Yes.
the business, right?
Yeah, to even and maybe part of it was even just, like, save up money, so before I do a
Right.
business, I have seed money for this business
Yeah.
or, that I can justify taking this huge leap that I was about to make, and,
Mm,
yeah, it definitely helped, and I probably would have continued on in the grant writing position, except for the fact that I just found so much joy and the time consumed me in creating my new business, which that first business is Global Bookshelves International, where I was publishing books about underrepresented topics by people from diverse backgrounds and really helping them tell their story and with the goal of trying to create more empathy, more kindness, more goodness in the world.
mm.
So it's been a great journey.
You mentioned that your children were a part of the creation and inspiration. How so?
I started as a coach with the Happy PharmD, and after our first conversation, and I told you one of the big problems I had was that I didn't have enough time already because I was working so hard. So I was working a lot of hours in my full-time job that I was trying to leave, and then I added more hours by becoming a coach, right? It's very antithetical, but I figured that no, this is helping me get my way out. What
Mm,
expedited this whole thing was there was one night I was getting ready to go on a Zoom call right after doing my daughter's bedtime routine. I have 3 little girls, and the Zoom call was at 9 p.m. So I'd just done their bedtime routine. I came and I heard the doorbell to the Zoom. I was about to coach a client, and my eldest came into my doorway and said, "Mom, can you come and like read another book?" And I said, "Look, I have a client. I'll be there." And she was like, "Oh, by the time you're done, I'll be asleep." And it was that moment watching her walk away that it stung. I
mm,
really knew that I was going to make that transition. That really expedited everything. I'll be honest, where I was like, "Okay, I know I want to change. I need to do something to change, but I really do need to do it fast." And I that was really what changed me to to actually leave and get a grant writing job. The second thing it did was I asked my daughter, her name is Lena, what would you like me to do? How should I fix this problem that I don't have enough time? You wanted me to read another story. I already read a story to you. And I did what I thought was my frugal way of handling being a mom and being a working woman is I would actually press play in their bedroom speaker to some bedtime story podcast. So after I would read aloud, I would play some stories that would help put them to sleep and I'd step away. That was my secret hack, I guess. But that wasn't enough. And
mm,
Lena basically says, "Mom, can we start our own podcast?" And children mirror what they see, and at that time I had started talking on a couple of podcasts with the Happy PharmD, and my spouse is also a pharmacist. He listens to podcasts all the time. The kids listen to bedtime story podcasts all the time, so it wasn't strange for her to propose this. She actually proposed a podcast, and I said, "Sure, let's do it, but how would ours be different?" And she said, "Mom, it should just be like the books that we have on our shelves." And the secret to everyone listening here is that I was already trying to really diversify our bookshelves for a personal reason of making sure my children learned about the world. And so hearing her say that, she was 5. I think she recognized that the podcasts that they listened to, the mainstream ones, didn't have these diverse stories. So her podcast, which is real, it's called Salaam Storytime, inspired the actual publishing company. That's why I called it Global Bookshelves,
mm.
all because of Lena. So, yeah, yeah.
Does she take, like, ownership of that? She's like, "Hey, this is because of me, that you even have this business?"
Sometimes she regrets it. She's like,
Oh, no.
"Mom, you're still," because I'm still now. I do have a problem. I'm still working a lot because I love it so
Mm,
much. But I think that
yeah.
I'm much better at having balance in my life. everything's on my own terms. And recently I created another company, co-created another company with Theary.
Yeah,
uh,
she's just on the podcast.
Amazing, another pharmacist, UI UX designer. We worked on a project together. It was through Global Bookshelves at first, but I realized something, and I'll just basically share why I created another company. It's called Publishing in Doses. It's because as I'm focusing so much energy and love into Global Bookshelves and having these underrepresented voices, what I can't escape is my past and history of basically now a decade of experience in publishing and a lot of friends who are pharmacists or other healthcare providers that just know me and that know that I'm uh, all about publishing. And so Publishing in Doses was created because, I wanted to meet this niche of fellow pharmacists that had publishing needs and want to self-publish. And so I was like, Thierry, you did really great design work. It was great working with you. What do you think? What if we created something and really helped other pharmacists that are just coming to me anyway? And it's kind of an ethical way of me not being able to now being able to help serve people that don't necessarily fit in the model that I publish Global Bookshelves books.
Mm,
And it's just a new space and a new creative way to support others and make some income as well. So yeah, everything is kind of being created for a reason, and it's just been a really exciting journey to help others and do what I love to do and get paid to do it.
mm. You know what I love about that story, and I've heard it over and over again on this podcast when I talk to people like you, is, a little spark in changing your mindset has led to just so many amazing changes,
Yes.
new partnerships, new friendships, new projects. With your new company and Global Bookshelves, how many new books have you published?
Over 10, but this has been in just 2 years. So
Okay,
yeah,
10 new books that have been read by hundreds, if not thousands now of people. Like,
yeah,
that's a huge amount of impact that you've made. And it's all because of changing how you thought, right? It's the perfect story to highlight the difference between a scarcity mindset and the
yes,
abundance mindset.
yes,
Because you could have stayed at that old job. You could have kept working there thinking this is where I need to be or I have to be. No one else is going to hire me. There's not other opportunities. And now, like, just how your tone has shifted from talking about the past to talking about what you work on now. I mean, it's so evident how much clearer this role, this job is, so much more aligned with who you are and your values and what you believe about the world. Um, Regardless of how much you're working, like,
right,
it's
right,
really clear.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely now I will tell you, my parents still don't understand what I do. They didn't really quite before. They still don't understand, but that's part of the journey and process too.
Mm,
And I think just even you said the word values. I didn't even recognize before what my values were in terms of how it aligned or clashed with a previous job. And I think once you're
yeah.
able to walk away from it or see it from a different perspective, it is so important to make sure every project that you do or every new thing that I take on personally, I really do make sure it aligns with my life, my values, and my purpose.
Mm,
And that's when that happens, it's just endless beautiful things that continue to happen from that, like limitless things, which is amazing.
that's beautiful. You have done so many amazing things in a short period of time. You've shifted to creating not just one new business, but two. You have a lot of other side projects that I hear about from you. And is it okay if we reveal on this podcast what is happening as of this recording this Saturday for you?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
Okay. Well, what is it? What are you doing this Saturday?
I'm delivering a TEDx talk. And it's the beautiful thing I want to share with this is that as a company with the Happy PharmD, Alex, you lead us in setting our goals. every time when we meet as a group of all the coaches. And so I remember the first time I met and the first time I wrote goals, it was related to, maybe is there a way for me to find a different career that I'm happy with? And then the
Mhm.
next time we met, I was like, check, okay, need a new goal. And then the next time it was, you know, something else. And I've just been able to check it off. Well, the last time we met, I put delivering a TEDx talk on
Mhm.
my goal list, and I was really holding myself back from applying. But I applied and to one this summer, and I found out that I got it. It's a TEDx Ocala, and the recording will be live on the TED YouTube channel in December. So whenever everyone's listening to this, we'll be able to share the link because I'd love for you to hear it. The nugget I'll give away is the title is What Your Bookshelves Say About You.
Mm.
And I'm very excited to deliver it. I'm really excited about the message that I'm sharing. Definitely a little nervous. And the irony is, when you were just saying how it's an accomplishment and it's so great, I kind of was just thinking to myself, oh, it's not a big deal. Like so many people do TEDx talks. So it's so easy to get into that mindset of what I'm doing is not a big deal. I don't know. I'm feeling that right now. So you're actually inspiring me and reminding me that it's something cool and
Yeah, well, I
exciting to
think
share.
I could be wrong, but I think it's like you and Tim Ulbrich that have TED Talks. Like I th I think?
Well, DeLon Canterbury,
Oh, he has one now.
he's sharing at the same time. We're gonna meet in Ocala. We're gonna be
Oh, okay.
delivering our TEDx talk at the same time,
Oh,
which that was
wow.
not planned. That was not planned at all.
Okay, now there's 3. So I have to join here pretty soon.
You
We'll see what
do.
happens.
You do. Yeah.
We'll see. Well, Janan, thank you for sharing your journey, your story. What I'd like to ask you though, normally I ask like, what do you wish you could tell your younger self? But I think where you're at right now is inspiring for a lot of people because I think there's a lot of pharmacists out there who know what they're passionate about, or they know what kind of difference they want to make in the world, whether it's in pharmacy or healthcare, or maybe even something bigger. Um, what do you think the you of like 10 years from now would want to tell you in this moment, right before you go on TED Talk? What do you think she would want to tell you?
Just exactly to keep remembering the accomplishments and not to downplay or belittle them. And that there will be more ways for me to find the joy in what I do in the different phases of life. In some ways, I see other pharmacists and myself, the past me, still kind of limiting or being afraid. But I think
Mm,
10-year later me needs to say, just go for it. If the values align, if everything feels right, try. I think I need to hear that.
I'm glad that you tried because it's been working and it's
Yeah.
so cool to see where you are today. John, I think something that I'm very proud of for you is that you haven't held back your voice. And like it's really clear all over your company website. It's really clear. I mean, after I talked with Theary, I was like, okay, yeah, this makes total sense. I'm super excited to see the TED Talk. I wish I could be there live, but I'm really excited to see what happens next for you because I think whatever it is, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch for me anyway.
Thank you. You've been a huge part of the journey. I love being able to share all the exciting things. And, I know you didn't ask this, but for those that are wondering and you're a pharmacist and you have these passions that seem so unrelated to pharmacy, you're talking or listening to someone whose favorite things are photography, reading books, spending time with kids, cooking. And in the last few years, I won't bore you all with the details, but I have been able to monetize on all of those things in some way. And and it's part of what I do every day in some way
Mhm.
or another. And so even if it seems so unrelated, there is a way to make it either a part of your life as a side hustle or maybe to create your life and still be a pharmacist. I still very much consider myself a pharmacist. I coach pharmacists with the Happy PharmD, but I also work with pharmacists, and I think you need to have pharmacist skills to do what I do in publishing for sure. So I'm a proud pharmacist and also all the things, all the other things too.
Lovely. All right, Janan, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alex. Take care.
When this podcast goes live, I'm hoping that we'll be able to put that TEDx link down at the bottom. Who knows? Things can happen, but we'll put it there and update it later. I'm sure if you look up as well her name and TEDx, you'll see it eventually on YouTube in the future. Thank you for listening to this episode of our podcast. Let us know what you think. Let us know what other careers or ideas that you would like us to cover in this podcast. We're happy to talk with people about a variety of any kind of career decisions they make. We'll be doing a little bit more of some of our client interviews in the future, as well as talking about some of the things that have been going on in our industry. I'll be doing some solo episodes here in the future because there's some things to talk about. There's some things to discuss. And I think, well, I'll have fun doing it. And I think hopefully you will too. Thanks for watching this episode or listening to it. And until we see you in the next one, take care.